Hello and welcome to another video, and thank you for all your birthday messages and birthday wishes. I'm laughing because I just recorded this. I didn't plug the microphone in, so second try. And again, thank you for all your comments and all your likes and subscriptions. We're now at 8,000 subscribers, which is just incredible, absolutely incredible. And it literally was only weeks ago we hit 5,000 subscribers, so yeah, it is gone pretty crazy. And yeah, so I did put up the buy me a coffee link. I'm going to put the QR code up there. No one has to do it. Again, that option is just there, your support on just liking and putting notifications on and putting a comment in. Now it's just as good for me, but yeah, I know some people appreciate it and they want to help me go out and pay for petrol and all that. No one has to, and it's just really kind of you who do that. Today is there's no time slip today, okay? Even though my last video had a little bit of a time slip in it, this one has not got any time slips in it. It is your traditional spooky, creepy, poltergeisty type video, and there's a bit of a story behind it. So when I was filming Gravesend early in the year, I met a gentleman now, and he was telling me that he'd asked me what I was doing because I was filming the stairway of this old pub. And I said, I'd make these videos about ghosts and paranormal stories and keeping the legends alive. And he told me he said my dad was a cop in London. And he said it was from 1940 up until the late 1960s. And he goes, and he was involved in this bizarre poltergeist case. It was in Norwood in London. And he was telling me the story. And in my head, I'm going, I'm sure I know this. I know this story. And he was telling me about his dad going there with other officers, and they stayed at this place, and all this sort of stuff happened. And I'm like, this is ringing so many bells. And I've gone through all my books, all my documents, and old newspapers online, and old newspapers I collect, and I couldn't find anything. I knew this story. Then it dawned on me that years ago I got a book, and it could be the only other place it could be. And if you watch my other video, I did showcase this book. And this is one I bought off eBay, because I say the other one's in the loft. And it was in it. It was in it. So it does reference it. Some of the details in the book are different to what I know from the gentleman and from other research I'd done, because after I found this, I knew where to look in my old files. And it was from way back in the early 2000s that I looked into this story. And it's an interesting one. Now, it's not as big as the Enfield Poltergeist, but it did get media attention. And there's some accusations thrown around towards the end of it, which we'll cover. I have a few of my own issues with their story, but we're going to get into it. So this is number 5, Langmead Street, Norwood, London. So a little bit of background story to Langmead Street, and that was number 5 was damaged during the bombing of World War II. And we'll come back to that point near the end, because I say there are some issues I have with this. Before that, looking at the really old maps, there seems to be some sort of like really old street layout that don't really line up with the streets that are there now. After the bomb damage had been repaired, this building was moved into by Mr. and Mrs. Greenfield. They experienced some stuff in that house. Now, they had a son, Cecil, and their son, Dennis. Now, Dennis moved in there with his wife is Gladys, and they had 2 younger children, Gordon, who was 8, and Patricia, who was 14. Now, during this period after the war, it wasn't uncommon for all families to sort of like mingle back together. So it was unusual that the mum and dad were there, the 2 older sons were there, and their young family was there. So Gladys, Dennis's family, were there with him. And I say that wasn't uncommon, and that has been questioned as well. But looking back up after the war, lack of housing and that sort of situation in that area, this was a common thing to go on. Now, after a few months of them all moving into the house, some strange things started to happen. They'd be sitting there of an evening and they would hear sort of like a knocking noise. And they're looking over the house to see where this knocking noise was coming from. They thought it was coming from the loft. They took a look in the loft and there was nothing up there. But over a period of 4 years, those sounds started getting worse and worse. Not only did they have that sound, at one point it sounded as if something was being dragged across the whole roof of that house. They'll keep going up looking to see what they could find out. Nothing was found. On top of that, other things started to happen. The doors would start to bang. They'd get up and look around and no windows was open, so it couldn't have been the wind. Then a rustling sound was heard in the house. And again, so this is a period of 4 years where it wasn't like every week, it wasn't every month, just some periods of time during that year, it got worse. So after 4 years, it got to a one particular week where the sounds were every evening and they didn't stop. They was going throughout the night. Now this was completely different to what had normally happened. They could live with the noise beforehand, but this was getting a little bit annoying for them. But Cecil had been woken up in the night by the sound of somebody outside his door. Now his bedroom was on the first floor of the building and he thinks that maybe someone's got up and gone down for a drink. He opens up his door, looks out and there's no one around outside his bedroom. He thinks maybe one of the kids are ill, so he goes down to the kitchen. He's walking around the kitchen and nobody is about. As he turns to go back upstairs, walking down those stairs, he sees the figure of a grey lady with her arms folded across her chest floating down the stairs. He lets out a big scream. As he does that, the lady vanishes. His parents come out of their bedroom and find him shaking at the bottom of the stairs, completely pale. He describes them details of what happened. He said that this figure did not have any facial features that he could really work out. But not only that, was that he felt icy cold. The moment he see her, it felt icy cold in that room. But also that as the ghost moved down the stairs, it sounded like there was weight beneath its feet. Although it looked like it was floating, as it passed over the stair treads, they creaked as if there was weight to that vision that was there. So the parents didn't really know what to make of this, and they were like, probably had a nightmare. Now, where my reports differ from the stuff in books and other stuff is that I have another report from Cecil where he says that he returned home from work one evening. As he's walking down the street, by the front door of his house, he sees the figure of the grey lady entering the building. Now, he didn't first of all twig that it was the same thing, and he thought maybe a guest. He gets to the house and he's the only one home at that time. And he's thinking that maybe his parents had got home from work earlier and they'd let a guest in. So he wasn't really putting two and two together at that point. He opens up the front door, expecting to see the parents home and this lady he had just seen going into that house. He shuts the door behind him, he turns around and says hello. He hears the words hello come back to him. He walks round and he didn't recognise the voice. He walks around the ground floor and he says hello again and he hears the voice hello come back, and it's coming from the kitchen area. He walks into the kitchen and nobody is there. This has puzzled him. He goes round and checks the whole house and nobody else is at home. Around about 20 minutes later, his parents arrive home. Again, he tells them what he saw, and they're going, I know this wasn't a nightmare or a dream or anything like that this time, because I'm wide awake and I see this lady enter our building. What he did not say was that he see her enter through the door, like opening the door and going in. He just see her going into the building. So could she have passed through the door? 5 days later, two events very, very quickly happened. And that was that Dennis and Gladys returned home from a party late in the evening. As they walk through the door, they see this grey figure. They describe it as a grey white figure coming down those stairs, but this time she had her arms straight down beside her side. Again they screamed and the vision vanished. What happened after that is what triggered the events after. Their young daughter, Patricia, was playing in the house in the afternoon, and she hears somebody coming down the stairs. She turns round and sees this grey lady walking down the stairs. She gives a slight description of her face, and she describes her as not really old but not young, sort of like middle-aged lady, and that she had a sorrowful face. This was enough to petrify Patricia. Try and say that too quickly. The parents found her shaking, and it took her some time to recover from what she had seen. This was enough for the family. They called in the police. Now, a different version to that story, that part of the story, is that Patricia see the lady the day before the parents come home from the party, and that evening when the parents saw this figure on the stairs, they run to their neighbours, knocked to the neighbour's door, and then called the police. But what it ended up was having a police inspector turn up at the house, and when he did, he found the whole family curled up in the corner with all coats over them, shaking. Now, was this an overreaction? Does this lead into the accusations later on that we'll get to? But it made the police very, very concerned. Now, the police inspector was Sidney Chandler. He was more concerned about an intruder in the house, and he got a few more officers in there, and they searched the house from top to bottom. Couldn't find anything in there. The family persuaded them to stay there till daylight, which they did. The police left in the morning, and then the very next evening, during a lot of banging and crashing, this vision appeared again on the stairs. The family ran off and called the police. The police turned back up, Inspector Chandler turned back up with more men. This time they stayed there from early evening when that vision was seen, right the way through till midday the next day. The police said that they witnessed crashes, bangs, objects moving about in that house. They didn't know what to make of it. First of all, they were convinced that maybe somebody was living in the loft. They'd gone up, searched the loft out, and there's nobody up there. Yet when they were downstairs, they could still hear things banging in the bedroom and things being dragged across the bedroom floor. One officer went up there, stayed up there, all the other officers were still downstairs, and while that officer was in the bedroom, he said a chair moved across that bedroom. Now that freaked him out, and he went back down and didn't want to be in there anymore. I now believe that that officer up there, due to the conversation over that gentleman, that this was the gentleman's dad that I met, that because he turned around and said that his dad was in this room in this house when a chair moved across the bedroom on its own, and he didn't spend 30 seconds longer in there and run back downstairs and told his boss. So that is where I get that information from, about the police staying out overnight and hearing all these banging. It does cover it in some of the other books. There's another report where they cover that as well. But this was really puzzling for the police. They didn't know how to proceed with an event like this. A few days later, Inspector Chandler came in to visit the family to see how things were going. He didn't have no real updates for them. He wanted to hear what they had to say and if there was anything else they could add to it. While he was there, they heard more banging in the bedroom. At this point, this was the elderly parents that were left in the house on their own. So no one else was up around that building. But the picture frames in the bedrooms all flew off the wall and crashed to the floor. The inspector went up there just in time to see the last picture flying off of Patricia's bedroom and landing on the floor. Again, the officer did not know what to make of this. Now, if you put that in context, that this is before the Enfield Poltergeist, this is only 10 years after the war. They don't really have a precedent of what to do on this. They truly believe that this is a paranormal experience that the family go through. The police refer it to the church. Someone from the church comes in, and to be truthful, it doesn't seem as if the church believed them, and they thought that the family was making this up. What does seem to be a consequence of that vicar turning up was an escalation in the aggressiveness of whatever was going on in that building. Dennis was in the house alone. He hears banging and crashing coming from Patricia's room. After the picture's fallen off, he's expecting to go now and see the pictures laying on the floor. What he see was the big mattress that was on Patricia's bed being curled up at one end. He said this was curling itself up as if it's been done by invisible hands. Then he starts lifting it off the bed into mid-air. Dennis thinks that the best way forward is to grab the mattress and try and pull it back down again. He finds himself in a tug of war with this entity in the bedroom. And he is breaking out in a really bad sweat, a bit like me sitting here telling this story at the moment. And he's fighting with this mattress. And somehow he's not too sure what it was, and how he describes it was these fists grabbing him. It tears his shirt and he falls to the ground. He comes out, shuts the door, and as soon as he shuts the door, he hears the mattress laying back down on the bed. That very evening, Gordon, the young son, who was 8, is standing halfway down those stairs. Patricia is standing at the bottom. Gordon said he felt what he described as icy hands on his back of his shoulders and pushed him down the stairs. Patricia screamed, not just because she see her brother fall down those stairs, but she said she saw this grey lady standing behind Gordon just before he fell. This is where the council and all that get back involved, and where the accusations start flying. Many people believe that the family were trying to use that ghost excuse to get moved out that house into separate accommodation. This isn't uncommon, you know. It has happened, and back then it happened as well. People would say the house was haunted, and you know, this was a little, I'll say a different time. I'll tell you now that when I was a local councillor, I did have people come to me telling me they wanted to move out the house because the house was haunted. I was more interested in asking if I could go around and do an investigation. But it was something that did happen and does happen. Now, if you watch the Newark Street video, number 88 Newark Street, you'll remember the reporter and investigator Philip Paul. Philip Paul got involved in this case back then. What he describes is that Dennis spoke to him. He said that Dennis claimed that the radios in the house would turn on and off, the lights would flash continuously, and that Dennis also witnessed a bottle of milk float up and move over the stairs one by one on its own. Now, I'm not saying that Philip Paul has a reporting style, but he does often bring up floating bottles of water, floating milk bottles and stuff like that. It does seem a little bit strange to me when you read Philip Paul's stuff. The same details get added in there. Is it lazy journalism? Is it, I don't know, or does this stuff happen in ghost sightings or in poltergeist stuff? Is it that if things are not seen floating around, they're just put down as ghosts, and he's more interested in poltergeist, and if he puts in that he see a floating bottle, he can claim it's a poltergeist? They're the things you have to take on board. But things didn't stop there. Cecil then claimed that he was asleep one night and got woken up by somebody tugging at his feet in bed. He looks up and he describes just a figure, a faint, blurry figure at the end of his bed trying to pull him out of bed. Instead of jumping up and running out, he claims that he just pulled the bed covers over him until that figure disappeared. I find that a little bit strange, first of all, but then I don't. I think that sometimes it depends what sort of person you are, doesn't it? What would you do if you woke up and there's a strange thing standing at the end of your bed? You know it's not a real person, so forget that. So don't think you're looking at a real person at the end of your bed. Do you pull your bed covers over and hide and pretend you're not there? Now that thing of if I can't see it, it can't see me sort of thing. Or would you run out the room, which may mean running past it? I don't know. Thinking about it, I don't know what I'd do. I probably would pull the bed covers over. Pretend it ain't there. It'll go away. Well, in this case, it did go away. But the day after, they're all in the living room area when I hear an almighty bang. And apparently they had this really big oak kitchen table. And this big oak kitchen table flew up against the kitchen door, which meant they couldn't actually get into the kitchen. And Dennis had to come in through the kitchen window and pull that table away from the kitchen door so they could actually enter the room. That I probably give a little bit more credibility to. Goes back to one of my old family stories that my nan and granddad were upstairs and they come down one morning and all the kitchen furniture had been pulled up against the kitchen door and they couldn't get in there. Now nobody could have done that, and I'd say that, but think about it now, right? My nan and granddad's kitchen, you did have two doors into that kitchen, the main door and then for a living room door. But it would have meant my granddad and my nan would have done that, and they both went to bed together, and I know my granddad wouldn't have got up and done that in the middle of the night just to play a trick on my nan. So, but yeah, these sort of things do happen. And I think my family put it down to my Uncle Ronnie doing that. As his ghost done it. Because he always used to play practical jokes on them apparently. So, but yeah, going off key here. But yeah, we've all got our own little family ghost stories, haven't we? And they're the ones that we want to keep alive on this channel. During this time and the weeks after the kitchen table moved, wall writing had been going on. Mainly in the bathroom, but also in the living room area. Now the wall writing was written down as, was either MP32S8 or MPSZ38. Completely meaningless. No one could ever find any meaning to those words and letters. Was it a code? Was it a code that someone's trying to put over? But they ruled out the kids. It wasn't kids' handwriting. And during the time that these writings appeared, no one had been in those rooms. So again, it is unexplained. So unfortunately, this report got leaked to the national press. And it got leaked locally. And the house became a little bit of a tourist attraction. And Philip Paul, who was involved at that time, doing a report on it, rather suspicious that he's doing a report then gets leaked to the media and the national press. So I do point the finger at Philip Paul for that. The family got put under increased pressure of what was going on and accusations of them completely faking and making this stuff up. Now, if you take out the case of them not wanting to leave that house, there's no reason for them to actually make stuff up. They didn't want it leaked to the media. They weren't doing it for fame or glory. And Dennis said that if they was making something up, they certainly won't call the police and get them involved in it, because they believed in not breaking the law. So you've got to either take their word for it that they were actually seeing this, or Philip Paul's word that they were making this up to, well, Philip Paul doesn't say they're making it up. Philip Paul, what he describes is that he believes some of this was down to family hallucinations. I don't get that. Not when you add what the police saw as well. Other things went on during that period of time when police were there. The police just didn't see paintings fall on the floor. They see objects in the living room moving around. They see the books come off the table. They witness other stuff themselves. Dennis and his family were at the centre of attention. They were getting home and the crowds were outside the house wanting to come in, have a look around. From time to time, they let a few people in and tried to get on with their normal day-to-day life. The crowds started to get less and less, and the interest in the story went away. 2 years later, they actually did move out of that house. Some people said that just added credibility to the story that they were doing it to relocate. But the Hewitt family, who moved in after them, nicknamed the ghostly spirit in there as Horace. And they used to talk to Horace, but Horace never replied. Now, this is where I've now got to get involved and put my point of view on it. And it does bring up a little bit of strange stuff that I can't pinpoint. And that is that some of the basic information doesn't add up, right? And this means that number 5 was meant to be damaged by bomb damage. Now, here's the bomb map that I found. A bomb didn't fall in that street. It fell a few roads away. It is very plausible that shrapnel did hit the house and damage it, and whoever's in at that time moved out. The other problem I've got is finding the house there at that period of time anyway. Now, I'm not doubting that this house was there, but I am doubting it. I've looked at all the maps, and yes, redevelopment in that area was done in 1980. Number 5 does look like it's always been work buildings from about 1960. Was this house demolished almost straight after the Hewitts moved in? Did something go on that we don't know, that house ended up being demolished? That land where number 5 is are just work factories now and yards. There's a photo here of that land being redeveloped. But is there a reason why that number 5 was demolished? Was it that people couldn't stay there that long? Every time they moved in, something did happen. Now, we only have Philip Paul's report of him going back, talking to them, and saying that it was taken over by the Hewitts and they referred to as Horace. What we do have was Inspector Chandler, once he retired, turned around and said he totally believed the Greenfields. That when he was there, he see things that he can't explain. That nobody done it. When things flowed in front of him, they really flowed in front of him. He completely believed them. He said it was totally credible. He had no doubt about them. Not that they had a breakdown or it was stress related or anything like that. He just believes that, yes, this did happen. And he's completely baffled by the case. What I'm happy about is that I found this story again, because I do remember when I originally found this and done a little bit of research back then on it. And to line it up with the gentleman that I spoke to in Gravesend and finding that his dad was the police officer in that bedroom when the chair moved across the floor is absolutely brilliant. Not just that, is that gentleman that I met, he wouldn't have known about this story, so it's come first hand from his dad to him. And you know, I just like stuff like that when it all lines up and you've got other people's point of view on it. Do I think they're making it up? Or they made it up? I don't know. So I was all geared up to go down and visit the house. As I say, it's not there. The street is still there. But when you're doing the planning and you look up number 5 and the planning stuff, it puts it where the yard is in that street. I don't know, but I didn't drive down there in the end. Maybe it's something I may do one day, go down and visit it myself if I'm in that area. I've got some stuff coming up on Wimbledon Common, and I'm not chasing down the Wombles, but there's some ghost stories around Wimbledon Common that I would like to investigate or tell you about anyway. Some are quite creepy, and actually brings up Spring Hill Jack again. I uncovered that recently, and I found a load more reports on Spring Hill Jack that don't add up with the stories that I'd already told you. Was there 2 Spring Hill Jacks? So this is like 50 odd years after the first report. So who knows what went on there. Anyway, again, thank you for watching my videos. It means everything to me. I can't believe we've got to 8,000 subscribers. And yeah, it's a bit crazy. Look, made myself a little skull, a golden skull. 3D printing is so addictive. Although that is spray paint, it is just white. I did spray paint it. So yeah, I've also made a full-size stormtrooper, scout trooper, no, biker scout helmet. So yeah, it's too addictive, but I do enjoy doing it. But I'm working on a few other videos at the moment. It does mean doing a lot of driving and checking some places out. They may not come up till later on, but I've got a backlog of some really good ones I want to get out there. So I may try and record a few of those together and then put them out, you know, whenever I need to put them out. So if I'm away, I may put one up while I'm away or something like that. So I don't like doing videos way in front. I like to do my next video after I've read the comments from the videos before, so I can answer your questions, or if anything's come up I can reply to them, or if somebody said something I can answer them on here. It's not always going to be possible because of some of the videos, how far I've got to travel to do, and I don't think, unless I film one day me sitting in the back of a car just filming the video like this, and yeah, on location as it would be. But again, thank you, and if you like this video and you made it to the end, post, type in the comments Stormtrooper. Thank you for everyone who put Ghostbusters. So many of you watched my videos to the end. It's just brilliant. So this time, type in Stormtrooper. Somebody did ask, what's all this Ghostbusters stuff? So let's do Stormtrooper. That was really going to confuse them this time. But again, thank you and stay well, and I'll see you next video. Bye.